Back when the Turks were warring with the Greeks, they ran out of bullets, and the Greek army did something incredibly strange. We'll tell you all about it on a new episode of The Internet Says It's True. Welcome to The Internet Says It's True, where every week we learn something that sounds like I just made it up, but it's really true. Part of the WCBE podcast experience. My name is Michael Kent. This is episode 202. Hey, thanks for being awesome and tuning in. I want to welcome Charlotte to the Patreon. She's our newest Tiziter. You can go there to see bonus stuff. That's at patreon.com/Michael Kent. And that's, of course, the best way to support the podcast.
I am once again asking for your financial support.
And don't forget to pick up your show t-shirts and mugs. Imagine spending those early Monday mornings by listening to this show and pouring a cup of coffee into one of our own mugs. You can get those on our website. That's theinternetsaysitstrue.com, and then just click on merch.
Merchandising!
And finally, make sure you are rating and reviewing the show. You can do that on the Apple Podcast app. That's the purple logo. And most of you already know that because something like 34% of our listeners use that app to listen to the show. Looks like 15% of you listen on NPR, 7% on Spotify, and the rest is just a grab bag of random places where you can get this podcast. So anyway, go on the Apple Podcast app, leave a 5-star review along with a few words so we can keep bringing in new listeners and everyone can get more smarter.
I was thinking of giving this place 5 stars.
So without further ado, we're going to go all the way back to early 19th century. And really, way before that. But before we go back that far, let's just go back about 9 years. Back in 2015, I had this crazy 9-hour layover in the Athens airport in Greece. I had been to Crete for some shows, and I was on my way to the next stop, but I wasn't able to stay in the airport for an entire day. I just decided I wasn't gonna do that. So I checked my luggage, and I paid a cab driver extra money to show me around Athens for the day. So I got to see some incredible stuff, like the original Olympic Stadium, the changing of the guard at the presidential mansion, Lycabettus Mountain, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, the Acropolis, and the Parthenon. And today's story revolves around the Parthenon. When I visited 9 years ago, the Parthenon was under a decades-long reconstruction project. People working on this thing were spending their entire careers studying the missing blocks in the marble and then using 3D imaging to recreate the blocks. They're attempting to restore it to its original shape. So what was this thing built for? Well, it was built in 432 BC, that's 2,456 years ago, as a temple to the goddess Athena, as a sort of celebratory monument for the Hellenic victory over Persian invaders during the Greco-Persian Wars. It was also used as the treasury. Later, it was converted to a Christian church. Then, after the Ottoman conquest, it was a mosque. The Ottomans were using it as a munitions dump, and when it was attacked by the Venetians, it destroyed a lot of the original structure, basically a huge explosion. Over the years, the story of the Parthenon goes like this. Basically, at least 7 different times, the Parthenon was attacked and completely transformed. During one of these times, a huge 40-foot shining bronze statue of Athena was stolen, and it's never been recovered. At one point, many of the important pieces of marble were shipped to Britain for study, and were never returned. From 1821 to 1830, the Greeks fought for their independence from the Ottoman Turks. This war is known as the Greek War of Independence, and the Greek victory resulted in the formation of what we now know as modern-day Greece. It's the beginning of this 8.5-year war where today's story takes place. The Greeks had been fighting for their independence from the Ottoman rule for literally centuries. None of the rebellions had been particularly successful. But in March of 1821, a large organized Greek uprising had begun, and they instantly took back all of Athens except the Acropolis. The Acropolis is the area around the Parthenon, a giant hill in the middle of the city that almost acts as its own town. In fact, the Ottomans had built many houses and storehouses around the Parthenon. It was their military fort and their armory. If you see a photo of the Acropolis, you'll understand why. It's an easily defensible position, rising above the city of Athens below, so they had high ground, but they were also leveraging the fact that they didn't think the Greeks would attack their own sacred Parthenon. So that's one of the reasons they used it to store munitions and powder. But now the Greeks were attacking to take it back. The force was made up of 600-some Athenians, but reinforced to a size of about 3,000 attackers with help of Aegineans, Hydras, Cephalonians, and Chias. The Ottomans also called in reinforcements, and soon took back the city of Athens for a short time. In 1822, a second siege by the Greeks once again had the Ottomans surrounded at the Acropolis, and that is when the Ottoman Turks began running out of bullets for their flintlock muskets. They started looking to the marble stones of the sacred Parthenon to make more bullets. That's when the Greeks said no and came up with another idea. We'll talk about that after the break. If you love listening to this podcast every week and you want to show your support, that would mean a great deal to me. You can do that by becoming a Patreon member. We've got members at all levels, whether you want to pledge $1 a month or $10 a month. Just think about the value that you receive from this show. And if you like the histories and the stories that you learn about or the jokes that you hear, and if you think that they're worth it, consider signing up. For that, you get every episode ad-free and a week early, access to bonuses like the unedited videos of the guest appearances, and 20% off all merchandise. You can sign up today at patreon.com/Michael Kent. That's patreon.com/Michael Kent. There was a time that humans used 100% organic products as healing balms and moisturizers for their skin. Well, I've partnered with an awesome company that wants to get back to those times. Fatco sells organic and responsibly made tallow-based skincare products. For centuries, humans used tallow in skin moisturizers and healing balms, but unfortunately, the topical application of these fats seemed to stop around the same time that animal fats stopped being considered part of a healthy diet. A lot of modern skincare products do more harm than good by stripping your skin of its natural oils. Let's change that. You can try them out now at fatco.com and get 15% off your order by using my promo code INTERNET. Go to theinternetsaysitstrue.com/deals for the link.
I'm John DeSando, host of Back Talk. This podcast is an extension of the long-running, award-winning movie review show, It's Movie Time. Back Talk features additional content and banter with guests about new movies. If you want more insight and information about what's playing now in theaters and online, find Back Talk at the WCBE Podcast Experience on WCBE.org. You'll be happy you did.
The Turks of the Ottoman Empire fought with several types of weapon in the Greek War for Independence. Ottoman flintlock muskets were smoothbore muzzleloaders, mostly of Ottoman build, but they also fought with imported weapons from Europe, like the British Brown Bess and the French Charleville musket. Officers commonly carried pistols, made in both the Ottoman Empire and by the Balkans. And then they also had artillery like cast iron and bronze cannons. In 1822, the Greeks were making their second attempt to lay siege to the Acropolis, and during this time, the Turks started running low on bullets. Lead had been used in the joints of the stones to build the ancient structure, and as the Turks needed lead, they started actually dismantling the Parthenon to make more bullets. They had already removed something like 500 stones. This was in the area that still stood after the horrible explosion that had blown apart much of the structure 200 years ago when the Venetians attacked. So this area of the Parthenon was now being destroyed, and the Greeks watched and fought back. A young historian named Kyriakos Patakis becomes very important at this point. He was an important Greek historian, but he was also part of an underground resistance movement against the Ottoman Turks, and likely fought in the 1922 siege at the Acropolis. Patakis saw before his very eyes the Parthenon being destroyed just so the Turks could make more bullets, and he went to give a speech at the Academy of Athens, pleading for an unusual solution. He asked Odysseus Androutsos, a military leader of the time, for bullets. Why? Patakis' plan was to actually give bullets to the Turks, their enemies, in the hope that they stopped dismantling the Parthenon. And they did. The Turks actually fought with the newly supplied bullets and left the rest of the Parthenon standing. You heard me right. The Greeks actually sent bullets up the mountain to the Acropolis so that the Turks would stop removing stones from their ancient temple. This one man, Patakis, and his connection to the history and preservation of this landmark actually saved part of this beautiful structure as the battle continued. By June of that year, 1822, the Turks surrendered the Acropolis after a year-long siege. The terms of the surrender were that the Ottomans would be given free passage out of the country on foreign ships not aligned with Greece, and the Turks who wanted to stay in Athens would be given amnesty to stay without being harassed. But, spoiler alert, they were harassed. Eventually, the Russians, the British, and the French all came to the aid of the Greeks, and by 1829, They won victory over the Ottoman Empire and regained their independence after centuries of Ottoman rule. And today, the Parthenon still stands. So 9 years ago, when I visited the Parthenon, some of what I was seeing had been restored and rebuilt, but much of it was original and only preserved because one man cared about their ancient heritage enough to come up with an incredibly unusual tactic. The internet says it's true. It's time for Yap Yap with me and a friend. Today, I am calling Nikki Smith. Nikki is an actress and performer who has started a new business called Nikki the Death Doula, where she assists people who are passing over and have family members who are in the middle of that. Nikki is a longtime listener of the show, big supporter. Thank you so much for joining us today. What are you up to today? You said this is just your day, nothing, huh?
Yeah, I'm doing as little as humanly possible. I try to at least have one day a week where I don't do anything but lay in bed and read, maybe watch a little Netflix, and later on I have an inflatable pool in the backyard, so I'm going to go hang out in the pool for a little bit because it's hot.
Sounds amazing. It has been so hot this week, and it's muggy today too. So that sounds awesome. How's the Death Doula business going?
It's going decently well. I mean, I started like 3 years ago-ish, and the first 5 years of business is always really rough. And but it's growing. Mostly what I'm doing right now is a whole lot of public education on who we are and what we do. So
give us, I know we went over this last time you were on the show, but give us just a quick summary of what a death doula does.
Yeah, we provide non-medical, holistic support, comfort, guidance, education for the dying and to their loved ones to help them navigate the end-of-life process, which sounds a little redundant to things like hospice, but we are there more frequently. We do a lot of the deep emotional work. We spend more time with the family. We help build legacies they can leave behind. And if you've never been through an end-of-life process, there is a lot that goes on and a lot of decisions that need to be made. So just having somebody with some knowledge willing to sit there and hold your hand through the whole process, in my opinion, is invaluable.
Absolutely. Having just went through this with family, I had no idea how much of like administrative things there were.
Oh yeah.
This is after the process, There's just so much to do. And in a way, it's kind of nice that it helps with your grieving process to keep your mind busy so you don't have to just sit there. But at a certain point, you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's just
I do grief
busy.
work as well. And that's one of those things I caution people, like, you're not going to feel your grief right away because there's so many decisions, so much has to be done immediately after a death, and you're going to be really busy. But as soon as all that's over and the casserole stops showing up at your front door is when it's really going to hit hard. So
yeah. We had so much food sent to us. It was.
Oh my God,
nice.
I bet.
Yeah. Well, before we get to this week's quiz, Nikki, I've added a new segment where you come up with an interesting fact to try to stump me. And so the idea is that you come up with something I didn't know about, and I have to honestly answer whether or not I already knew about it or if I'm hearing about it for the first time. So what do you have?
Okay. So I'm going to quiz you because I think you know.
Okay.
I'm hoping you know. Maybe you don't. Do you know if medical aid in dying is legal within the United States?
Oh, no, I don't know whether it's legal. I'm going to guess that it's not. I'm of the generation that when I was a kid, the Jack Kevorkian case was a big deal. I know that he ended up getting in trouble legally for that whole thing. And so my guess is that no, medical, like, assistance in dying is not legal.
That's incorrect.
Really?
You have to play your wah, wah, wah sound
there
effect. It is. No, it is legal in 10 states and the District of Columbia.
What do you have offhand? Do you know what states those are?
Yeah. California, Colorado, Hawaii, Maine, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Vermont, Washington, and then the District of Columbia.
Wow, off the top of your head with no notes. That's incredible.
I will say, too, there are two of those states, Oregon and Vermont, have removed their residency restrictions. So you don't have to be a resident of those states to obtain medical aid in dying.
So you can be like a death tourist.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
I mean,
I do
kind of
know, sort of third hand, a story of someone who did that, but I assumed they did it, sort of extra legally. I assumed that was just a thing that they did sort of, at home.
It's actually been legal in Oregon since like the very late 90s, I think.
Wow.
It's been around for quite some time. A lot of people don't know that.
Just out of curiosity, are there like stipulations on like you have to be
Yeah, you have to have a doctor has to sign off. You have to have 2 or 3 different doctors sign off. You have to have obviously a terminal illness with no hope of cure or recovery. You have to pass a psychological evaluation to make sure you're of sound mind to make that decision.
Right.
And you have to be able to self-administer the medication.
Oh.
Yeah. Nobody does it for you. You have to, and it's usually a liquid that you drink. So you have to be able to swallow, which is really unfortunate in cases of like ALS, or people who might have throat cancer, things like that. People who can't swallow anymore. You have to be able to drink it on your own.
Oh, so you're not allowed to give yourself an injection or something like that?
I feel like in some places they do have that. I'm not entirely sure, but again, you'd have to be able to push that plunger down by yourself.
That's great. You get bonus points for not only having one that stumped me, but having one that like is in your wheelhouse, like in your domain. So that's awesome. Good work. So for question 1, we're going to play for a joke. So if you get it wrong, you got to tell me a joke. If you get it right, I will tell you a joke. Here's your question. When the Greeks were fighting for their independence from the Turks ran out of bullets and they started disassembling the Parthenon for bullets. What unusual thing did the Greeks then do to preserve and save the Parthenon? Was it A, they smeared it in feces, B, they surrendered to save the Parthenon, or C, they gave the Turks some of their bullets?
Oh, man, Vicky's going to kill me.
They're all great answers.
I have a Greek friend who's going to kill me for not knowing the answer to this, but I'm just guessing. I don't see surrender being an option. I'm going to guess A. They covered it in feces.
The answer is C. They gave the Turks some of their own bullets.
Oh, that was my second guess.
Yeah,
all right,
that's true. Like it was mainly thought to have been started by one historian who was also a soldier. And he came up with this idea. See, they used lead to hold the bricks or the stones together on the Parthenon. And they had pulled like something like 500 blocks apart already to take the lead from between them to make more bullets. The Greeks found out this was happening and said, hey, why don't we give them our bullets? If they're going to shoot us, they're going to shoot us. At least this way we can.
That's a much better option than covering it in feces.
Yeah, it's a much better option. And also like the other thing is, like the Ottoman Turks at the time were using the Parthenon as a munition storage. So it was also already incredibly precarious what was happening. And so they're like anything they could do to stop the pillaging of this thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a joke for me?
I do. Okay. I think you'll like this one.
Okay.
What is a pirate's favorite letter?
What is a pirate's favorite letter?
One he gets from his family because he probably hasn't seen him in a long time.
You love it. I was not seeing it coming.
I know.
I've heard that joke being, you'd think it'd be but 'tis the sea they love.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
And I love the anti-jokes. I know you do too. So.
Absolutely. You got it. You got it. Every time I have Jimmy Mack on here, I always get the anti-jokes going because he loves those. All right. Wonderful job. Even though you got the question wrong, you got the joke right. Question 2. For the next question, we're going to play for your most embarrassing on-stage moment. You've done plenty of acting and performing throughout your career. Lots of stage moments. The word Parthenon is taken from the ancient Greek word Parthenos. What's the meaning of Parthenos? Is it A, virgin, B, temple, or C, justice? Okay, the word is Parthenos.
Parthenos.
Yeah.
I'm going to take virgin out right away.
Okay.
So it's justice. What was the other one? I'm sorry.
Justice or temple?
Temple. The Greeks were big on democracy and the justice system. I'm going to go with justice.
The answer, virgin. You have 2 things to answer to your Greek friend about now.
All right.
Don't let your Greek friend listen to this. Yeah, the word Parthenos means virgin. In the Greek pantheon, there were 2 goddesses that were known for their purity. They were also called with the epithet virgin. Artemis, and which was the goddess of hunting and wild nature, and Athena, the goddess of warfare, strategy, and wisdom. Athens was named for Athena. The Acropolis and the Parthenon were basically dedicated to Athena. So therefore, virgin. Parthenon.
All right. Vicky, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry.
All
Do you have
right.
but I like this because now we get the stories. Do you have an
Oh
embarrassing
gosh.
on-stage moment?
So it wasn't really embarrassing at the time, but I'm embarrassed that it happened at all. Way back in college in the early 90s, I was in a musical. It was My Fair Lady, and I was in the chorus. So I was
Okay.
only in a handful of scenes, basically the background, I'd dancing, chorus, numbers, whatever. And I was also sorry, mom. I was a really big stoner in college. I smoked a lot of pot. And one day I thought, I'm going to smoke a little bit of pot before the show, which I was like, I'm in the chorus. I'm not a lead, whatever.
Right.
I had a little more than I probably should have,
Oh,
and I was
no.
very high. So I was terrified and I got through the show. Like I didn't trip. I didn't knock anything over. I didn't cause a huge scene, but I was so incredibly stoned through I had no idea. The show felt like it was 4.5 hours long. Everybody backstage kept screwing with me, like getting in my face doing this. And I'm more embarrassed that I did that. So to this
That's
day, I
hilarious.
refuse to perform. And I do improv. I'm in Columbus's oldest improv group. And I will not drink. I won't have a single drink before I perform. And a lot of, you know about comedy. Like everybody likes to drink while they're performing. And that's my line. I don't drink during or before performances, period.
That's fantastic. I can't do it either. I've had drinks before while performing, like before performing, back in the day, you know, if I was doing like a corporate event, I might have a cocktail and if it was like a more friendly company, you know, one where it didn't seem like I was more friends than business associates with these people, then I would have a couple drinks. And I never am good. I'm never as good when I've been drinking. It's just that's just
and
the way
plus,
I feel.
like
You feel
I don't
like
know,
you're
maybe
good,
it's
but you're not.
Yeah, no, and maybe it's an age thing. Like as I've gotten older, I just feel like that's kind of disrespectful to the audience because
especially if
I
they
know
paid.
I've gone to
there.
see shows where the performers just tanked, and it's like, well, thanks.
Yeah.
I paid money for this.
Yeah,
So.
I have too. I've been to shows where the performers have been drunk and high and everything else, and you know, that becomes the story that you tell about it rather than the material.
Yeah, that's what they're known for then at that point, and that's no good for anybody. So yeah.
Awesome,
There
good
you go.
story. Well, for the next question, we are going to play for a sticker. These are 3 inches, they're square, and I'm getting rid of all of them because I'm ordering new ones from a more reputable company. Look at that! Oh my gosh, this is the water bottle from the picture that someone sent me, that Jim sent me, I think. That's fantastic. So you must have been in a meeting. This answers a question because my friend Jim sent me a picture and he said one of your stickers seen in the wild, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so flattering. So apparently you were in a meeting with another Tiziter and you didn't even know it.
I didn't even know that. Look at me go.
We need to come up with a handshake or a signal or something so y'all can recognize each other when you're in the wild.
Yeah. Do like a T.
Like a T for Tizit. You touch the nose, you make a T, and people are like, is she saying it's time out for smelling? What's happening? Okay, here we go. We're playing for a sticker. Pericles is credited with ordering the building of the Parthenon and Acropolis. His funeral speech from 431 BC is one of history's greatest speeches. This was one that he gave at a funeral for someone else. Which other great speech from history is thought to have been largely inspired and taken from the Pericles funeral speech? Okay, so this dude from, 5th century BC was so revolutionary what he said that one of these other speeches basically borrowed from it. A, the Gettysburg Address. B, FDR's Pearl Harbor speech. Or C, Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech.
God, the one I want to rule out is Martin Luther King, so that's probably the right answer because this has been my track record for this.
Okay.
So my first instinct is something else, but I'm just gonna say Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech and be totally wrong.
What was your first instinct?
My first instinct was Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor. Oh, which was B.
Yeah.
But you're saying C, Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech.
Yes.
Neither one of those are right. The answer is A, the Gettysburg Address. So in his famous Gettysburg Address, this was November of 1863. Gettysburg battle happened in July. Lincoln revived and repeated the same chord struck by Pericles, that the honorable soldiers play out in a drama larger than themselves, that they die in order that their homeland might live, and that their sacrifice reverberates far beyond the battlefield itself, indeed, to the whole earth. So these were both, things that were said in these speeches. So
I was epically wrong.
epically wrong. You're
Epically
0 for
wrong.
3.
So do I have to send you a sticker then?
You do not. You do not. Yeah, you just don't get a second one.
If I get stickers with my logo, I'll send you one. I don't know that I would.
That would be good. Yeah, because I have not joined your Patreon, which you do have a Patreon.
And I actually had an idea. I think this is a wonderfully terrible idea. I was going to get pens made with my logo on it that say, "I hope this pen runs out before you do."
Oh, that's actually really good.
See?
There is a market for like, your background in comedy and combining that with like, wanting to create a lighthearted feeling around the ideas of like discussing a difficult topic. I think that there's something to be said for that. And I
tend to use humor. I also, having a background in performing, I know how to read a room. So I can tell if this is the room where they're not going to laugh at a joke. Sure. But I can also tell if this is a group of people, like they can handle a little bit of gallows humor, or they've already dished it to me. So I'm like, awesome, these are my people. I can use this.
It's really important. So much of what I do is reading people because especially like, if I'm trying to determine who in the audience I'm going to be picking on or calling on stage for different routines, I need to know how they're going to react to these things. And I've had to learn over the time to just kind of watch them and see how they react to some of the jokes. And that will let me know how they're going to react to some of the later things in the show. So
awesome.
It's good to know. And I think it's something that comes with doing comedy for a while is that like, since you've done it, kind of who's going to
Well, and that's also why I feel like I'm so good at what I do now is I'm a real good reader of people and I can get a sense of their personality and, what's making them tick. So
love it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, for question 4, Nikki, we're going to play for doing the dishes. So if you get it wrong, you got to immediately do any dishes that aren't done, including if they've been cleaned, you have to go around the house and find other things that need to go into the sink. So there's that. And if you get it right, I will immediately do the same. I think I have some work to do upstairs too.
I'm not doing great, so I think I'm doing the dishes here pretty soon. But, but fire it at me.
We'll see. This one actually might be the easiest question of them all. I say that not to make you feel bad, but you don't get it wrong. Which one of these is true of the Parthenon? A, it used to have curtains. B, it used to be painted in vibrant colors. Or C, it had some of the earliest examples of carpeting.
Okay, what was the first one again?
It had curtains. So it used to have curtains, it used to be painted in vibrant colors, or it had some of the earliest examples of carpeting.
In case it's not totally obvious by my office, I'm a fan of vibrant colors in my glasses. So I'm going to go with vibrant colors. The
answer, believe it or not, is vibrant colors. You got this one. You got this one. You're 1 for 4. It used to. You don't have to do the dishes, which is great. You can go a whole nother week.
Oh, thank goodness.
This is true of most ancient Roman sculptures and everything. We see them as these white marble blank canvas type looking things, but no, many of them were painted to look realistic like people. And the same goes for the Parthenon. We see it now
again,
all white.
Love the vibrant colors.
Yeah, totally. And what's interesting is modern depictions, or I shouldn't say modern, but later depictions of the Parthenon display it the way that we see it now, all white. So many of the paintings that came hundreds of years later are also wrong because we didn't know for a long time that these things were painted until we had the science to go in there and see that there were paint remnants. So
interesting.
Really interesting stuff.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, you've done 1 for 4, but now it's time to redeem yourself. This one's for all the marbles. And if you get it right, you're welcome back on the podcast anytime. We would love to have you. If you get it wrong, banned for life. We're even going to take away your sticker that's on your water bottle, and we're going to take away your Tiziter membership. All of that.
No.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I might, if I can find a way to ban you from listening, I'll do that too. So if you get
this
one,
never.
If you get this one wrong, done. If you had one item or totem that was to represent your legacy after you're gone, what would it be?
Oh, okay. Item or totem. Okay. This might sound cliche, but a tree. I would love. I hear a lot of people say that about because I talk to a lot of people about death and dying, and they say I'd love to have somebody plant a tree or something of that nature. But my Facebook profile photo is me literally hugging a tree. I love trees, forests, hiking, nature. So if somebody would plant a nice big oak tree that provides beautiful shade, and it's just nice to look at. I think a tree would be perfect.
And oak trees live a really long time, so that extends your legacy
They
for
do.
know,
My
longer
parents
than
have
you.
a set of oak trees on their property that are over 400 years old.
This is a house that my wife and I are going to buy, I guess. I don't know if that's true.
Apparently. Well,
It's
you'll
on the
enjoy
market.
some 400-year-old oak trees.
I love it. I love it. Well, that is a good answer and a correct answer, which means you are welcome back on the podcast
Yay!
anytime. Go check out Nikki the Death Doula. What's your website for that?
It is NikkiTheDeathDoula.com. Real easy to
That's
remember.
easy to
and Nikki is
remember.
spelled Nikki. So
Yes, and
there you go.
also check her out on Patreon. Is that linked on your website?
It is. My Patreon is there, as well as my podcast.
Wonderful. If you want to learn more about that, check out Nikki the Death Doula, the podcast, the website, the Patreon. Thank you so much for joining me. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
That is all for this week. Thank you so much to Nikki Smith for being my guest, and thanks to you for listening. Here's the voice of a tiny Greek warrior.
Thank you for listening to The Internet Says It's True. To listen to episodes ad-free and a week early, support us on Patreon. You can do that at patreon.com/Michael Kent. If you learned something just now that you didn't already know, go to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review with 5 stars and a few words. That helps us a ton, because that's how the algorithm works. I don't know what an algorithm is, but just do it! See you next week for a brand new episode of The Internet Says It's True!
The Internet Says It's True would like to thank the Patreon subscribers whose monthly contributions help to make this show possible. Sean Brown, Joshua Endress, Dallas Ray, Bryce Swanson, Eugene Anderson, Jim and Joanne Martin, Mitch and Andrew Joseph Kemplin, and the show's official Emperor, Kick Track. The show is written and produced by me, Michael Kent. The theme song is by Finite Music Forge, and all audio clips in this episode are used for education and commentary and used under Fair Use Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107. You can listen to past episodes by searching for The Internet Says It's True wherever you get your podcasts, and you can see bonus content at patreon.com/Michael Kent.